All right, let's talk about something that's all around us, but most of us never really see. Private equity. It's this incredibly powerful force in our economy, shaping everything from the stores you shop at to the apps on your phone. It's kind of the hidden money behind, well, a lot of stuff. So let's pull back the curtain and figure out what it's all about.
So think about it for a second. That coffee you just bought, or your favorite clothing brand, or even the software your company uses, ever stop and wonder who actually owns that business? You might be surprised to find out that the answer often points straight to this world of private equity.
Okay, so to get a handle on this, we've got to forget everything we think we know about the stock market. You know, the flashing numbers on the screen, the Dow, the NASDAQ, all that stuff. We're stepping beyond that into a totally different and, yeah, a much more exclusive corner of the financial world.
And here's the big difference, right? You or I, we can go online and buy a few shares of, say, Apple or Microsoft. It's public. But private equity firms, they're playing a whole different game. They don't just buy a few shares. No, they buy the entire company, or a huge chunk of it. And they're doing this with businesses that aren't on the stock market. Sometimes they even buy public companies and take them private, off the market entirely.
So who's actually in this world? Who are the players? Well, a great way to think about it is like a super high-stakes expedition. You need two things. You need the expert guides who know the way, and you need the wealthy backers to pay for everything.
So let's break that down. First, you've got the guides. These are called the general partners, or GPs for short. They're the ones doing all the work, the private equity firm itself. They find the deals, they run the companies they buy, they make all the big calls. Then you have the backers, the limited partners, or LPs. These are the folks with the deep pockets. They're the ones handing over the billions of dollars to the GPs. And we're not just talking about a few rich people here. LPs are often huge institutions. Think pension funds managing your retirement money, or big university endowments.
All right, so we've got the guides and the backers. We know who's involved. But what did the process actually look like? What do they do from start to finish? Well, it turns out there's a pretty standard playbook, a life cycle that almost every deal follows.
It really breaks down into 5 key stages. First up, the PE firm, the GP, has to raise the fund. They go to the LPs and collect a massive pool of cash. Step 2, they source the deal. Basically, they go shopping for a company to buy. Stage 3 is the big one, buy and grow. They close the deal, take over, and get to work trying to make the company more valuable. Then, after a few years, comes stage 4, the exit. They sell the company for, hopefully, a lot more than they paid for it. And finally, stage 5, the best part for them, they distribute the profits.
Now, let's double-click on that buy and grow phase, because this is really where the action is. This is where private equity earns its reputation. So how do they actually create value? Well, it's usually a mix of 3 things. First, there's operational improvements. They'll come in and streamline everything, maybe bring in a whole new management team to make the business run leaner and meaner. Second, they make big strategic changes. Think expanding into a new country or launching a whole new product line. And third, and this one's a biggie, is financial engineering. A lot of the time, this means buying the company using a ton of borrowed money, debt. Using all that debt is risky, for sure, but it can also juice the returns like crazy. The main point is, these guys are not sitting on the sidelines. They are incredibly hands-on owners.
Okay, so why do all this? It's a ton of work, it's super high risk. What's in it for the PE firms? Well, the payoff can be absolutely massive, and it's all thanks to a legendary pay structure in finance called 2N20.
Let's start with the 2. This stands for a 2% annual management fee. So the PE firm takes 2% off the top of the entire fund every single year just to keep the lights on. Now, that might not sound like much, but if you've got a $10 billion fund, well, you do the math. That's $200 million a year, every year. That alone pays for the fancy offices and the salaries. It's their steady paycheck.
But the 2 is just the appetizer. The main course, that's the 20. This is the performance fee. The GPs get to keep 20% of all the profits they generate when they sell a company. This is the jackpot. They call it carried interest. And this is the incentive that drives everything. If they make their investors a ton of money, they get to keep a huge piece of it for themselves.
So there you have it, a powerful machine for buying, fixing, and selling companies. But is it a good thing? What's the real impact on all of us, on the economy? Well, that's where things get really, really debatable.
You really have 2 competing stories here. On one side, you have people who say private equity is an engine for growth. They argue these firms rescue struggling companies, make them lean and competitive, and ultimately create more value. But then there's the other side. Critics see them as extractors. They say the focus on short-term profits leads to piling on dangerous amounts of debt and ruthless cost-cutting, layoffs and other painful changes that can hollow out a company for the benefit of the owners.
And that really brings us to the big question, doesn't it? When you look at this whole system, the players, the process, that powerful 2 in 20 incentive, what's your take? Do you see it as a necessary catalyst for business, something that makes our economy stronger? Or is it something more like modern-day corporate raiding, a system designed to extract as much wealth as possible for a very small group of people? It's a tough one, and something worth thinking about.